Hey kids, Mr. Rhodes here. Today we are going to start a little new work. And because it's going to be our first new work here in a bit, and under the current circumstances we're all working from home, we're going to make our first project a little easier one. And what better way to start than to make a random inspirational quote generator? So I have my intro screen here. It's asking the user if they're ready to be inspired. And it's not very clear because I didn't put it up there, but you're supposed to click the smiley face. So let's go ahead and click on the smiley face. This brings up three options. We have a random image, a random quote, and random music. And guess what each one does? You're right, a random thing. So we hit a random image, a random quote, and that's random music. Another image, we can put more quotes up. Get different music. And we go back to our intro screen there. So we have a bunch of different things we can do. Pretty easy program. We're basically going to switch between some costumes, download some music. We're going to learn how to clip a little music. And then we're going to learn a little about layering and how we make sure the right image is on top. Sounds pretty interesting and fun. Are you ready to jump in, kids? Because I know I am. Well, let's get started. Well, here we are, our old friend Scratch. We are going to start a new program here. The first thing I'm going to do really is get rid of my cat friend here. I kind of want to start from the beginning. And the beginning is going to be that intro screen. And I think I'm going to have the intro screen on my backdrop over here. And on my backdrop, I think I'm just going to type out, "Are you ready to be inspired?" While I appreciate the purple font, let's go black here. We can make this a little bigger by just stretching it out. I think that looks pretty good there. Let's make it just a little bigger. Put it in the middle. I had a little smiley face here. I forgot to put a little part that says, click the smiley face to start. I'm going to keep this font pretty small and put this down here. Now the smiley face is going to be a sprite, so we are going to upload a new sprite here. I'm going to go to my smiley face. And as you can see, it's huge. We can change the size of it. I only need it to be about half as big, so if I type in 50, we can get it down there. And now you can see that looks like the beginning of mine. Are you ready to be inspired? Click the smiley face to start. I like it so far, kids. Let's do our first little coding here. We want, when the green flag is clicked, we want this to be shown. We also want it to go to the position it is at. Then, when this sprite is clicked, we want to broadcast a new message. And our new message is going to be start, because that's what we're going to do, is to start. We also want to make sure this backdrop here, if we go back here, we want this to be our start backdrop because we want to make sure we go there. So along with our code, we always want to make sure that the backdrop is switched to number 1, or the start. We need a new backdrop too because we want a blank one, and that one's just going to be one we can paint ourselves, and we're going to call this one Go. So this is the one while the program is running. Makes sense in my head, kids. So once we get there, we also want this smiley face to hide because we will not need it any longer. So we are going to, when it's clicked, it's going to hide. When it's hidden though, just remember we always need to show it on the start. There we go. Also, when we do that, we want to make sure we are switching our backdrop to a go. So that's the first part. Looks pretty good to start. We'll go over what you need on your screen at the end of the video. That takes care of that screen. Let's go ahead and start on adding our random buttons. Let's do this one at a time. The sprites I used were all the sprites that were already here. I just chose the different buttons here. You can pick whatever you want. I would try to pick something a little more creative than just button 3. This one is going to be our random image. So I'm going to call this rand image. And I'm going to go to the costume of this. Now I only need one color, so I'm going to delete this blue part here because I'm going to use that later. I do want to put some text in here. I'm going to put random image. We're going to center this like that. If we hit the arrow, we can shrink it down. We can get a little bigger. Get that nice and centered in there. That's going to be our random image. We want to start this like anything else. When the green flag is clicked, we want to hide this. But when we receive, I want to show. Don't forget to lock in your position as well. That should come up when I receive start. Let's go ahead and check it. Oh, there we go there. Now the images I am going to use are all going to be costumes. And I'm going to have it as something separate here. So I'm going to upload my image here. And if you look, I have my images already set to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now one other thing I want you to notice about these images. Let me bring one up here. My images are pretty small. I went through and I sized them so they are actually 480 by whatever. 480 is the width here of our screen in Scratch. So just be aware of that. It makes your job a lot easier if you can just plop them right into place. So that's my first one. I'm going to go here into costumes and I am going to upload the rest of mine. So that's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and our straggler 7. Also, because I numbered them in advance, you can see they import them all with the same on there. So if I click over here, you're going to notice they're all pretty much the same width and almost the same height. They're all cropped a little different, but importantly, it gives me a little spot down here where I can put all of my neat little buttons down here, and it's not overlaying the image, and that's the important part. That's my images loaded in. I have to do something or code that in now. If I go to my coding, again, normal stuff. When the green flag is clicked, we want this to hide, but we need something here. When this sprite is clicked, we need it to send another message. So in the event when this sprite is clicked, we are going to broadcast a message now, and this message is just going to be images. Now when I receive images, I can have something happen. And that's going to be under my looks. And I'm going to switch to a costume, but I want it to be pretty random. So I'm going to pick a random number. My random number you're probably thinking is 1 and 6. And it's actually 1 and 7. So make sure you're getting the right ones there. I want to pick the random number between 1 and 7. So now, if I hit my flag, come down here. Oops, you know what I forgot to do? I hit it. I forgot to show it. So I have to show, when I receive this, show that one. So as you can see, I'm getting a random image when I click on this. One thing I want you to notice though is whenever you see these inspirational quotes, the image isn't in its high resolution or the highest color. It's a little faded or the opacity's turned down. It just looks not as sharp. And we can add that effect as well. So if we come over here, we can also set the color effect, and we're going to use ghost to a random number. I'm going to try 35 here. So that means my image, as you can see now, it just looks a little darker. So when we put the text on it, the text will really pop, and the image itself just looks a little blurred, and that's how it's supposed to be. Remember, kids, it's inspirational. That takes care of my random image. Let's do our random text. We are going to paint a new sprite here, and we're going to put a bunch of text quotes in here. Now, I have a bunch of quotes already that I'm just going to copy and paste them in to save time. And I'm going to keep them roughly around the same size. If you see up here, I don't want to bleed into too much of it. So I gotta make sure it's running pretty good. So most of my images have something over here. That looks like it over there. We'll go through them and really check that as we go through. I'm going to keep painting images and copying and pasting them in. Second one here, we'll put this one up there. Keep painting them. Isn't this fun, kids? This is one of my favorite quotes. Especially the older you get, the more you'll understand it. I think I have one more. Nope, two more. And the quotes you kids are going to pick are all going to be stuff that you're going to select. And we're going to talk about that a little later. Don't get too caught up in what's being written right now. We will talk about that all at the end. One more here. And that looks pretty good. Now those are my random text there. If I hit a random image, I can go through them. And as you can see, mine are all pretty spaced up here except for this one, but that's all right. Most of them look pretty good. Remember, when you're selecting your images, you really want to have something that you can put text on. And more importantly, you want a set of images where the text goes on universally in the same spot, so you're not jumping around here or there. So we need to do the coding for this one. A lot like the other one here, we are going to need a button first. So let's do a new sprite here. And this one, we're going to go into our costumes, and we're just going to use the blue one here so it looks a little different. And this one, I'm also going to type random quote. I'm going to shrink that down a little, just get it real nice in the button there. I think that's spelled right. If it's not, I'm sure I'll hear it in the comments. I'm going to call this one rand quote. Make sure you're doing it on both of them. Rand quote. This right here are images. These are quotes in this one. Make sure you're keeping everything right. So all my buttons there are now named properly. Random quote over here. Let's go through and take care of our coding. When the green flag is clicked, we want to make sure we hide this. When we receive start, we want to show ourselves. We also want to make sure we're going to a specific spot. So let's go ahead and try this. Whoop. We got to hide the text here. So our quotes, let's go over to our quotes real quick and just hide this. Smiley face. We have our random images still. So when this sprite now is clicked, we are going to broadcast another new message, and this new message is going to be quotes. Over here in quotes, when I receive quotes, you are going to go to this spot. We actually could do a random position. We'll talk about that a little later. And then we want to show ourselves and switch to a costume. Which costume? A random costume. And in this one, our costumes go from 1 to 5. So we're going to go from 1 to 5. Let's go ahead and try this. We have our random image, and our quotes are coming up. Now, one thing we want to do with the quotes here, we also want to make sure we want to set this to the front layer when we receive this. So we want to show, and we want to make sure this is in the front layer. This will make sure our text over here pops real nice. So those look pretty good. This costume, I'm not too much of a fan of where it is at. Let's go ahead and do this. Make this a little more. Note we want to go longer ways. We just want to move it a little. That looks better. So we have our random images working. We have our random quotes to come along with it. But as you can see, this doesn't bring up enough emotions. We really want to amp this up. And what goes better with random images and quotes than music? So let's add a little random music on top of this too. We're going to come over here. We are going to pick a new sprite out. I'm just going to use this button one here. Get that where it looks pretty centered. Let's go to the costume. We are going to type in random music. Come over there, put that in the middle. Let's rename this to rand music for random music. Let's go ahead and take care of the coding for this. When I get the green flag, I want to hide. When I receive start, I want to show. And I also want to be in this position. So here it goes over there, random there, nothing's happening yet. When this sprite is clicked, now I want to do different sounds. So I want to play a sound. What sound? The random one. So we're going to have to load up some sounds here. We're just going to come over here, delete the pop music because we don't need that. And we are going to upload some music. Now as you can see, I have 15-second ones here, a bunch of them that I did that I'm going to open up and import. But I'm also going to show you how you can edit your own. So Ben Sound here. Hash Brown, this is not an ad. Ben Sound is a good source of place to find royalty-free music. If you don't have any YouTube experience, you know they will flag you for literally anything. So you have to be careful of what you're playing in your videos. So it is a website that I come to a lot to get royalty-free music. So I know I am not pirating anything on the internet, mateys. A lot of times, though, your sound will come up. This is a very long one. And while inspirational, we don't need an hour of this. We only really need a little bit of it. So what I can do is I can take a certain segment of it here, and this is the portion that I'm going to delete. So I'm really only going to keep this first part right here. I'm going to try to get it on a valley. Valleys usually means there's no music or anything, and delete it. Now when I play it, we only get a couple of seconds of it. This one here I'm going to rename to 6 because it is number 6. So those are my sounds there and my code. You guessed it. We're going to pick a random number between 1 and 6. And once again with the sounds, anytime the sprite is clicked, we are going to stop all those sounds and play it. Otherwise, you're going to get overlaying tracks. And while that is fun for a minute, it can give you a headache for a while. All right, let's try this out. You ready to be inspired? I am. Let's have a random image, random quote. Let's some random music. Are you feeling inspired, kids? I am. How about another image? Oh, there's the song we just cut. How nice. Ooh, creativity is intelligence, having fun. That makes me feel so inspired right there. Well, that's it, kids. That's our inspirational quote program. So you can wake up every morning and give yourself a random image, quote, and song to inspire you throughout the day. Pretty easy though, right? Nothing too hard. Really nothing other than layering that we haven't talked about in the past. This should be a nice, easy program to get us ready to get back into doing new stuff. Are you ready to see what you kids have to do for your project though? So for your project, you are going to have the following things in your program. You're going to have some sort of intro screen kind of explaining what your program is or does. You're going to have a random image button, and you have to have at least 5 different images. Those images also have to be placed in a proper place. That means they can't just be randomly all over your screen. Remember, it's 480 pixels by 320 pixels. That's the image space you're working with. Your images have to have an effect to make it lighter. I use the ghosting on mine. You need a random quote button. You have to have at least 5 different quotes. Now here's the part where you're thinking, Mr. Rhodes, what do these pictures or quotes have to be about? Well, it can be anything that can inspire you. Let's say, for example, you're a huge Fortnite player and you want to be inspired by it every day. You could have random quotes. Maybe you could have different images of different 90s or different edits with different quotes telling you to be the best player. Whatever makes you inspired, that can be it. But as always, kids, please, please, please keep it clean and keep it appropriate. So you can figure out whatever you want to keep you inspired. That's completely up to you. It just has to be inspiring. Your quotes have to be on the front layer. That means that your font or your text should just be a nice solid color, shouldn't be faded or behind it. You need to have some sort of music with at least 5 different sounds. Your sounds can be no longer than 20 seconds. And your sounds can be anything. They can be just quotes from movies, whatever you would like. Again, as long as they are clean and appropriate, I do not care what you put there. All sounds stop when you hit the button, so that means you don't have overlaying sounds playing on top of each other. When the green flag is pressed or you have a button, your program resets back. And more importantly about everything, I can read all of your quotes in it. Now, if you want to take this on a little further and you would like to do something a little extra, you can put more than 5 image quotes or songs in there. Feel free to. You can make different effects on your text. You can have random placement in your text. So you can use your random number generator and move it all around the screen. Your buttons can change depending on your mouse position. That means mouse down, mouse up, clicks, stuff like that. You know me. I am always up for any crazy ideas you kids might have. So if you have something that's similar that you would like to do, please send me an email so we can talk about it before you do it. And that's it, kids. That's all you have to do. I can already feel myself being inspired by what you create. As always, if you have any questions, send me an email or we can have a Google Meet. It's up to you, whatever works best for you. I cannot wait to see what you code, kids. See you later.